next point, which is our panel discussion. And then we'll have a possibility to ask questions and answer them as well. So if any of our participants, attendees wants to ask something or comment something, so please raise your hand so we can give you the floor, and you can ask a question to the specific speaker, or to have a general question, or to every question to everyone. Pontus, are you able to share the results of the poll that we brought up?
Yes, hello. Yes, I can share I think the results are available. You should be able to see them on your screen if you click on polls, maybe. It's still here, but
yes, it's here. I see. So most of our participants answer that increase of electric cars, increase of railway usage, and increase of shared mobility services will be the biggest change in next 10 years in transport sector in general. So let's start our panel discussion. So I will try to engage participants, and I guess the first question could go out to Maurizio from European Commission. So what are in views of European Commission? So what can we realistically expect in the next 10 years in change in transport that every citizen of Europe will feel? And maybe if you can reflect on a question that was sent in, social aspect of this change, I think, is also very crucial to be successful, and I think Henner already touched on this subject. So at least in the third position in our little poll, shared mobility was a crucial aspect of the transport change. So does European Commission also see this social part of it as a necessary thing to change in Europe to be more successful in this area? And what are your thoughts on how European Commission will or can approach this?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, the social aspect is very important from, let's say, both sides. On one end, the social acceptance, and this has been mentioned, for instance, for the planes, has been mentioned for the automated driving. There is also some issue with the electrification, even though I think this is changing relatively fast. But nevertheless, for instance, there is the issue of the affordability. So on one end, in our research projects, we ask strongly to try and reduce costs, because if you look at it from a manufacturing point of view, there's no reason why an electric vehicle should cost more at mass production. I mean, with the same level of production of a combustion engine. Of course, there are the issues of the cost of the materials. So there are other parallel actions that we are trying to sponsor, for instance, to have European sources of materials as much as possible. And I think there was an interesting presentation on the components. For instance, we are funding projects on switch reluctance and so on to try and reduce the needs for rare earths. But I didn't stress it, but maybe here it's good to stress all the efforts on circularity, because for sure we will need to try and keep in Europe all these materials that at the moment we are importing. I mean, if we are importing cobalt and then we keep the cobalt in Europe because we recycle in Europe and we reuse it in Europe, that of course will be a part of the solution. Another aspect is the fact that, yes, shared mobility might be a contribution to that, because of course that would mean less vehicles. In the end, most people use the vehicle 5% of the time. So if you have one vehicle which is used 3 or 4 times as much, it's 3 or 4 times less vehicles. So that's another area. And there is this issue of the rural, which was mentioned at some point. with the sharing. And I think there it's absolutely important. I think I keep saying to my colleagues, yes, cities are important, but we shouldn't forget the other communities. And with the COVID, even there might be changes there. I can see them. We will be asked to come back to the office less than in the past, as a kind of stable measure, even after the COVID will be gone. So that might mean less need for mobility just because of this. So I would also maybe propose research in what these changes could be, because they might be a significant area. As I say, from my reality, I would say that several tens of thousands of people in Brussels will not go to the office every day. So this is a huge numbers of saved trips. And maybe some of these people are already thinking of buying a house outside Brussels, where it's green, when it's you know, a better life, because of this, because they no longer have to commute. So there's, I think there's a dynamic that needs to be understood. And you know, I have the feeling sometimes there was an old saying in the military world that the generals tend to fight the last war. I think that we might be doing something like this. We keep just extrapolating the past to the future with this discontinuity given by COVID. Yeah, and another point, I think that I take the occasion to mention the other presentations. For instance, one issue that I've seen in charging is that there was this double charging system for cost. By kilowatt hours and by time. If you expect a significant share of PHEVs, if you have a time-based tariff, you are discouraging PHEVs from charging, and therefore you are making zero the contribution to, or you're making it worse, because a PHEV, if you don't use the battery, will be worse than a conventional car of the same size. So that's one comment that I wanted to make on the presentations that we have seen. And another comment is about pollution. I heard this comment, which is coming more and more, about the electric vehicles. They don't solve everything. I think it's a bit mechanistic. I mean, yes, there are particles, but it's particles like this. A combustion particle, you don't see it in proportion. I mean, a particle from a tire is in the center of distribution, is in the 40 micrometers. The center of a combustion particle, the distribution, is in the 20, 30, 40 nanometers. The health impact of these two types of particles is completely different. So, and on top of that, the electric vehicle eliminates all the other pollutants. I mean, benzene, polyaromatics, NOxes, everything. So I would be cautious about saying, oh, but electric vehicles pollute as well, because yes, maybe they pollute as well, but it's a fraction overall of the impact on health. We had a session yesterday. I moderated it, so it's recorded in the Green Week. We had experts from Finland, from Ukraine, talking about that. I would invite people to look at it, because it's a very complex issue. But if we give the public the sensation that, oh, we are changing everything and then we don't solve the problem, I think we are giving the wrong message. I think electric vehicles solve or get close to solving both the pollution and the CO2, of course, if we decarbonize the electricity.
Thank you. I see that we have raised hand, but before we get to the question or comment, I would like to little bit continue on the social aspect. So, Henner, maybe you can expand a little more on a wider scale. So, for the social aspect, what do you think is more important for people to change their behavior? Whether it's the governing body, the policy of Europe that would push the people to kind of change their behavior, or this is more of a commercial thing for private sector to come in with business solutions, and that would change people's minds on how they behave about transport, whether to travel less or share the vehicle and things like that. What is your feeling here? Or it's 50-50 on both sides?
If I look at what innovation the big car manufacturers have brought about in Europe in recent years, then I say it is high time for really strong governance. What we've seen is more and more combustion engines, especially the German car manufacturers, completely sleeping through the trend towards more EVs. We see a bunch, excuse me if I'm insulting somebody now, but just a bunch of engineers sitting together in these companies and designing cars that get bigger and bigger and bigger. So all reductions we've seen in emissions because of more efficient technology in combustion engines in the last years have been completely wiped out by more sales of SUVs. So just looking at the last 20, 30 years, we need really strong regulation, and we really need to, rein in those car manufacturers, because they will not do this on themselves. And they will also not do this because out of customer demands. I'm for really strong regulation in that context. And then we can say, well, okay, it's only the big manufacturers, but there's no innovations coming up. Yes, but they are also extremely powerful. We've seen that in the past also, especially in the example of the US, which is not super relevant for us, but can show us some mechanisms at play where car manufacturers buy off, very innovative companies and just let them die because they don't want the competition. So I'm all for really strong regulation. Now the question is scale in this context. We talked quite a bit about urban and rural in this context, and I think if we don't get regulation on the central level, say on the EU level or national level, then it's up to the cities to do something about it. Because as we've heard, mobility services are more important in the countryside for most people, or people are more dependent on individual car transport, which is not necessarily a given in the cities, and cities need to then to step up their game and say, well, we have car-free zones and we offer you good public transport, but you can't come in here with the car or it's really expensive. So that's more my gut feeling than based on substantial research.
Thank you. So we have a question from our participant, Tariq. Please, maybe you can briefly introduce yourself and ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Tariq Arsalan, and I would like to thank all the speakers for very good presentation. And now I have a question. So do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You anymore.
Yeah. Okay, just a minute. Okay, now, yeah. Okay. So now I have a question for Mr. Kalda. So you have mentioned autonomous vehicles in your presentation. So my questions are they running only in university campus area or all over within city? Second question is, what is average speed and highest speed of this autonomous vehicle? And what is the cost for a ride at the moment, or is it completely free?
Well, we had first public pilots in 2 areas last summer. One was a park where families go to, which doesn't have a lot other traffic, but it's the biggest central park where people just come and feel fine. And the other one was in a tech park in the Ülemiste city next to the airport, where there's a lot of traffic, buses and trams, and so we have had them now in different areas, also in closed areas, but open traffic, these 2. And of course, it is easier for us to do testings in the campus area, because everything is close by, and we have now put some smart traffic lights and smart traffic signs, which also work together with smart road material, so they can all be connected to each other. And we're also, so I guess that answers you. We do it all over the city. And the next question, can you remind me? You asked.
So the second question is about the average speed and the highest
yes.
speed. Yeah.
Well, we the first cars that we built were on the basis of iMiev. It's the Mitsubishi electrical car. We took the motor from there and we built our own body. But now we also designed and built the new ones are built on our own chassis. So it's fully our own creation. And we have limited the speed to maximum of 30 kilometers per hour, because that is the law that allows in public transport to drive autonomous vehicles. That is the maximum. In reality, we have even come down to 20 kilometers per hour just to be on the safe side. It is meant for the last and first mile, so up to 2 or 3 kilometers in this phase. Of course, as the safety and laws and everything will develop in the short future, we have the ability to have the cars driving as fast as the cars can drive. It's just that we ourselves have limited due to the restrictions of the laws.
Okay, and the third question is, so how much it costs for a ride at the moment, or is it free?
Yeah, well, we have, this is just a piloting, and this is free at the moment. There are the commercial partner, Auvetech, they have their interest in mind to earn some money. So they offer maybe the cars for a long-term rental also, so that they can get something out of it. And there every operator has their own rules, but at the moment all the drivings that have happened so far are all free of charge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe when we continue this transition from social side to more of technology advancement side, and I believe self-driving cars is somewhere in between the social aspect and the technological aspect. So, Krister, maybe you can elaborate on where do you see the self-driving car in next 10 years? What are your predictions? Where will be? And in context of Baltic states, do you see Baltic states being of a self-driving car bubble, maybe in Europe, where this could happen, maybe in rural areas more often than in other places in Europe, or that's not the case at all?
Well, talking about autonomous vehicles, we see a lot of need in logistics. So there are these platooning, they call it, where there's one car and then there is autonomous, like a follower that is connected to the main car. Then we just launched our first self-driving boat. What we did was we had a little boat to take firewood to a remote island, so it can drive up to 100 kilometers from the coast. So we see a lot of this like goods transport that can take advantage of autonomous driving. But in passenger traffic, then of course the first one is the last and first mile. So to extend maybe the public transport is the key issue here, because people want to be convenient. For them to not take their own car, it has to be very, very close to the nice way of traveling compared to their private car. So we have to break these little bits first, and then of course in the future we hope that as the electronics and AIs are much more wiser and clever and more alert than human minds, then it will be much more safer for us. So maybe in 50 years time, when the new generations are entering into the traffic and they don't like to take driver's lessons, and they like to be in their phones while they're driving, and they want to be in their phones and computers all the time. So that will change the whole paradigm of our traveling. And of course, it's nice when you have a self-driving car, you put the time when you have to go there, reach some place, and they can take you very, very fast because everybody is on self-driving mode. Then we will have secluded areas for the old timers like us who still want to feel the power of the wheel and go and do this unsafe driving. And like people, our children now don't know what are the cassette players. They soon are wondering, oh, were we so stupid that we drove ourselves? That's what we hope that is the future. And of course, the city parking is getting more and more harder everywhere. It was showing that do you hear me?
Yes, we can, but we lose you for a while. Yes, are you back? Can you?
I lost.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So
sorry, I don't know where you lost me, but the parking, yeah. So the cities are getting more and more overcrowded with vehicles, and it's hard to find parking place. So this will also, if it is, if there's a working self-driving system for in a municipality, like other buses and everything, then it's just so much more convenient to everybody to reach their destinations faster and without any worries.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move further. So let's move a little bit to the more engineering and technology side. And so my question would be, as Artūrs mentioned in his talk, due to technological advancements, shares or sold electric cars are increasing. And for example, in Latvia, during COVID pandemic, there was quite a crisis in the automotive sector, so people were not buying cars anymore, and dealers were in shock how to survive this pandemic. Excluding electric cars. Electric cars were the only ones which were actually sold more than before during the COVID pandemic. So it has a real impact. So Artūrs, what is your prediction on what will be the electric car proportion growth, at least in Latvia, or maybe you can expand a little bit in the Baltic states, and the range increases and things like that you people really pay attention to?
I guess there will be definitely a further increase in the electric vehicle proportion. Maybe the people who are living in the city, and mostly their mobility habits are within the city and let's say 100 kilometers above, they will strongly consider this option to buy a battery electric vehicle. On the other hand side, there was a good point from the colleague that in rural areas in the land where the charging infrastructure is not available or incomplete, people should also have some kind of solutions. And these solutions are of course hybrid electric vehicles. Well, these vehicles will have some kind of fossil fuel emissions, but nevertheless, we have saved some energy, and this is already something positive that we have done to our environment. Of course, with the time, when the charging infrastructure will be developed for a very strong network within the whole country, when we will have more energy generated from renewables, then the number of battery electric vehicles, fuel cell electric vehicles will grow in a more rapid tendency. But nevertheless, we have seen this growth. We see this exponential growth, and I hope and I see that this growth will continue also here in Latvia and worldwide, Europe-wide, and within the whole Baltic state region. What are the main threats? I would like to emphasize 2 points. First of all, that if we don't develop the power generation from renewables, then all this battery electric vehicle number growing will not make any sense to the environment if we start to produce electricity from fossil fuels. So this is the one threat which has to be considered. And the second threat is the charging and infrastructure. So if a customer will not have a possibility to charge his electric vehicle in a reasonable time, in a convenient manner, then it's also a threat to this growth and further development. But let's say it's a pessimistic scenario. Let's hope for the optimistic one. If we do this development in a gradual way and think about all the aspects about the legislation push, the politics that we make, about the customer social responsibility and campaigns providing that and increasing that, and if we consider these technological improvements and to think about all these three elements and develop them in a reasonable way, step by step, then everything should be fine, and we will go towards this optimistic scenario.
Thank you. So I think you touched on the subject matter of being able to, in convenient manner, to recharge your vehicle. And Edmunds talked about current situation in Latvia and the electro grid charging network that we have available. So Edmunds, in your opinion, are Baltics ready for substantial increase of electric cars, and how do you think we should go about on expanding this network? What are the crucial elements for making this happen in the nearest future?
So I have an electric car already 1 year. For this time, I charge this car only one time in a public charging point. Actually, I charge at home, but there is a problem in Riga or in big cities, because a lot of people live in a center. They have no option to charge by their own, and they need to go to public stations and charge, and it costs expensive. There is not so effect of that. And if you know that electrical cars is very expensive, and if you compare time and if you need to go somewhere to charge, it's little bit not so optimistic. Huh? Of course, we could be proud that in Latvia a lot of energy are produced by hydro power plants, but anyway we should look forward for renewable sources like wind, because we have a problem with society. They don't accept wind power plants, and we have some projects here in Latvia, and it's not possible to realize because people says no, we don't want wind farms. Yeah? This is a problem, and only offshore option in Latvia is one of the way, and I hope in the future, in the next few years, it will become in real. But as regards for solar panels, now it's starting to or beginning, people start to think about renewables, and now many companies offer solar panel installations with inverters to connection to the grid. And there is one good option that for city peoples which live in flats, and if they have summer houses, they could put solar panels on roofs at countryside somewhere, and give energy to the network, and spend energy in city. It's an interesting project, but it's not realized here. But it's now under discussion in governmental level. It's a very interesting field because actually I see a future for city cars and cars outside cities. Yeah? Because if we speak about cities, then that's the electrical driven cars. It's a bus, trolley bus, or electrical bus, which will be automated without drivers in future. I see, this is my opinion, and I'm pretty sure. As regards for a longer distance, that is a train, electrical train. It's now, we have now a Real Baltic started this project, and as we know, then electrical train is lower emission of CO2, and then this is the future. As regards for flights, this is a big problem because we have no electrical flights or zero emission flights. Now, maybe in future someone finds some solution with hydrogen, maybe with a hydrogen fuel cells or something. But I know it's a mass problem with energy density in this field. It's very difficult. This is what I mean about this. Okay.
Thank you, Edmunds. Well, I can mention that I think in Baltics, in Latvia, we have the only hydrogen kind of charging station. So let's move further. So there was a mention of two kind of mobilities. One is urban mobility, second is rural mobility, and Viktor mentioned already in his research regarding these rural areas. So what is your opinion on in the Baltics? Viktor, how do you see this carbon neutral environment? Maybe it's even easier to kind of achieve this carbon neutrality in rural areas, not in urban areas.
Can you hear me? So,
Yes,
thank you for the question. Yeah, indeed. I don't know. We have some ideas how to reach it, yeah, but we need to start doing, yeah, because all the theoretical investigation sometimes not very right, yeah. According to the CO2 emissions, there are different ways how to decrease it. And one of what was a good question, it's how to change people behavior, yeah. So from our experience, what we are using theory developed by LSE University. It's called installation theory. There are three layers. First of all, we need to get a solution, technological solution. Yeah. So if you say that we do not use the conventional vehicle, we need to have some solution, what we can do. After that, we need to explain people that it is important. So it's a psychological side. Yeah. Why they need to reduce usage of this kind of vehicles and to reduce CO2 emissions. And what is the third layer, which is very important, is social one. People need to understand that all around him is doing in a similar way. Because if he thinks that only he is doing and nobody else is interested in it, yeah, it will not work. So first of all, in initial stage, we need to start changing people behavior. And after that, we need to find the proper solutions. And also there was a question from dear Maurizio about automotive vehicles. Yeah. So we are interested very much in this idea to implementation them in rural areas. However, we have collaboration from engineering project with startups from Germany who develop this kind of platforms also for freight and for passenger mobility, but they are interested in urban and suburban areas, yeah. And if you take Lithuanian rural area, in some of the areas there's still not asphalt pavement. We got gravel, yeah. So we do not have markets. We do not have vehicle to infrastructure communications. So inside of our group, what we are doing, we are developing systems that will let vehicle to understand where it is and to classify the road itself. So we are making, but it's what need to be clarified. It's early stage engineering project. We are developing a technology that automotive vehicle could access these rural areas. But when it will be ready, yeah, it will take quite long time. And possible, maybe other group will develop something like a vehicle to everything communication. Because from engineering side, there are a lot of problems. If you are driving on gravel road, there are a lot of dust, and all the sensors, like for example LiDAR, should be placed outside the vehicle, yeah. And it's very ridiculous, but it's a problem, yeah. So we are using, for example, camera which is inside of a vehicle. It solves a little bit, but so from automotive in automated driving in rural areas, we're just solving a lot of engineers' tasks on this stage.
Thank you, Viktor. So let's move further on. And I think in the end, what is really important to always monitor the progress and see what's going on with the issue at stake. That's from, I guess, from every strategy handbook. So Kęstutis, my question would be here. So you have worked with unified methodology, how to compare cities, how to compare environments. So how do you see in the future, would this complex issue of mobility, not only by measuring CO2 emissions, but by measuring self-driving cars, by measuring electrical grid coverage, by measuring how many electrical cars you have in the city, what is the green walkability area, what's the bicycling area, and everything. Will we ever be able to come to such a system to see where each city stands globally, and we can easily see and compare progress in that matter?
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, I think technologically it's possible to develop such system. Just I'm not sure if we need such so big global system, because we have maybe it's regional level, or sometimes even it's enough to have it country level, because it's the same as with sustainability. Every city, every case, different problems and different solutions could appear. But definitely, I think it's in this case it's very important in this interaction of all these things you mentioned, because sometimes we can have infrastructure available, for example, for walking or bicycle, but people don't want to use it. The similar things we have in Lithuania, where now this bicycle infrastructure is improved, but still people just use it mainly, on weekends, holidays, but not, for example, very little for journeys to the office, for example, or even in countries with very developed infrastructures, for example, Holland. Some people, they prefer lifestyle where they drive Mercedes instead of bicycle. And it's part of I don't know, image of the life, how they imagine it. So, oh yeah, all these things are very interrelated, and let's think about the future. Maybe it could be bright, it could be dark. We can go different ways. So in this case, it's very important to try to combine all possible effects, all possible roads, all possible ways, bottom up, top down. Technology, availability of technology, and education, and things like that. But yeah, answering, I think it's possible to have some more or less unified system which allows to transfer knowledge, to compete, and so on and so on.
Thank you very much. So, colleagues, thank you very much for participating in our seminar. I think the time is running out, and we have to finish. I think we had a very good discussion today. We covered points starting from policy making, to technological side of the equation, and also covering the social aspects of this matter. So I think it gives you the mixture, the flavor of the great challenge what lies ahead of us for this goal of carbon neutrality. And this just indicates how complex the issue is, and I hope we will be able to move in one direction and achieve the goals that we have set forward. And I think Kęstutis put it perfectly. The future might be bright or dark. And I think here, all of us, we hope for the best, and our job is to make sure that the future will be bright. So thank you very much for all the speakers and for attendees who participated. We will send out definitely the presentation, so we would ask you to please send them to us so we can provide it to our participants. Before we finish, I would like to give floor to Pontus. He has some marketing announcements on some other events, and then I think we can finish. And I hope this is not the last time when we meet in different formats, different events. And I think the presentations today for everyone was very interesting, and it gave, as I said, the cocktail of the flavor of complexity of the issue that we have at hand. So Pontus, the floor is yours, and thank you very much. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Juris, and a big thank you to all our presenters today. A big thank you to the audience. From us here at Uppsala University and the BEP Coordinating Secretariat, I just want to one more time say a big thank you to Riga Technical University, our local host in Latvia, and all our partners around the region. And I will be very brief because I know I'm between you, most of you, and your weekend. So with this being said, we do have some upcoming events that I would like to recommend you to join in. We're doing the Space Bridge sessions basically every month throughout the year, but we're taking a short summer break now. But we will be back in August talking about sustainable food production in urban environments, social sustainability. We have topics related to democracy and sustainability, and a wide range of other topics that we will be discussing throughout the autumn in this type of format. And as always, they are open for free for you to join in, and I hope that as many as you will be able to take part. I also want to flag for one of our other sessions that we're having. This is an online scientific conference called the BEP Symposium 2020. I will put the link here in the description or in the chat for you to have a look at. This is a session where you can present your research and also have the possibility to publish. And basically, we're doing a scientific symposium online. So we're welcoming still abstract for both poster presentation and online presentation until the 8th of August. So you're most welcome to submit your research and get published with us. Again, a big thank you to all the speakers and Juris and Paula, who has been working with the Space Bridge with us. So with no further ado, yeah, one last point as well. You asked about the presentations. These will be made available on YouTube. So you can go back and watch them again. You can also see all the slides there, and they will be uploaded in about a week or so, and I will email you about it once it's online so you can have a look. But with that being said, I think it's time for us all to take a weekend, and thank you and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
nice weekend. Goodbye.